Hi everyone, it's Dr. Kahng, cosmetic dentist, and today we're going to talk about the pros and cons of composite veneers versus porcelain veneers. Before we move forward, if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button so that you don't miss any of my future videos on cosmetic dental procedures. Many people, especially in today's digital age, are looking for a smile enhancement and are trying to find out more information on veneers. So what is a veneer? A veneer is a layer of material that goes over your tooth to improve its shape and color. So let's say that you hate this color and this is your tooth. You can get a veneer, a shell, a covering to put over the cell phone, glue it on, and voila, your tooth has a completely different look. This shell, also known as the veneer, can be done using different materials. So that is what I'm going to break down in today's video. Let's start with composite veneers. Composite veneers are veneers that are sculpted right in the chair by your cosmetic dentist using a variety of composite colors and different materials. Composite materials are the same materials that we would use to fill a back tooth for a traditional filling. However, when we're working with composite on front teeth, we want to use materials that give a little bit more of a lifelike appearance and match sometimes the color that is already existing. So when it comes to composite veneers, I think that there are three major pros. The first one being the most important and the reason why they are so alluring to most people, and that is that they are completely additive, meaning that no tooth structure needs to be removed and everything is simply just glued on top of the tooth. This is personally one of my favorite aspects of utilizing composite for veneers because what it really means is if you don't like it, it is completely reversible. The second pro is that the results are somewhat immediate. You will leave the office with a brand new smile. And for a lot of people, that is a huge pro because it's exciting getting your teeth worked on and you want to see the final result. Number three is more of a technicality. It is that if you break or chip one of your composite veneers, it can be repaired on the spot with some additional composite. So those are my top three pros of composite veneers. Now let's talk about the cons. The number one con of a composite veneer is that it is more likely to stain or chip. The composite material just happens to be more porous and absorb more stain. It's just due to the properties of the material. I do find personally that there are a few ways to minimize the staining, and that is one, for your dentist to create a very high polish and high shine. And two is just to be really honest with yourself about how often you introduce staining foods to your mouth, such as coffee or red wine. For example, if a daily turmeric shot is part of your routine, those composite veneers are likely to stain much more quickly than for somebody who only drinks water. And then of course, composite veneers will last much longer in certain types of bites than others. Without getting too technical, if you are somebody that has chipped one of your front teeth just from the way that you bite and live, it's more than likely that your composite veneers will also chip. However, if you've already done some amount of braces and you don't have any chips on the front teeth, there's a higher chance that you'll be able to ride these composites out longer because your bite is more favorable. You can expect a composite veneer to last around 3 to 5 years, but as you can see, it really depends on the patient and their habits, and also it really depends on whether the patient was a good candidate for composite veneers in the first place. The second con is that even though there are fewer visits involved with composite veneers and the results are pretty immediate, they are long visits in the chair. And that is because your dentist is spending time building up each tooth from scratch. So this takes a lot of time in the dental office. If you are somebody who's a little phobic to coming to the dentist, then this may not be great news for you. However, the procedure itself should be quite painless. It's just a matter of laying there for a long time with your mouth open. And I find that a lot of patients tend to get a little restless with that amount of time in a dental chair. Number three is that the results are really dependent on the skill level of the dentist that you choose. And I put this as a con because I find most patients have a hard time assessing whether their dentist is a good cosmetic dentist and works well with front teeth and can deliver the results that they are wanting. So it is really important to choose a cosmetic dentist that you trust, who listens well to you, and that you feel skill-wise can deliver the results that you're looking for. Number four part is that we as dentists are more limited as to who is a good candidate for a composite veneer because we can't move the teeth. When we have the power to drill a little bit of your tooth off, we have the power to do what we call instant ortho, which means if a tooth is buck or protruding, we can actually shave that back in order to do the veneer. But if your tooth is forward or buck, we cannot do anything about that. There is no composite that we can add to that tooth. All we can do is make all the other ones buck as well to come to that level. And that's because we really don't drill or create that space for composite veneers. For example, if one of your front teeth is more forward in the arch, we really can't take that back because we're not drilling any of the teeth for composite veneers. We're just adding. So what we would have to do in order to match to that one front tooth is build out all the other ones, which may result in a more buck look overall. But that is the limitation when it comes to additive dentistry. Okay, those are my 4 top cons of composite veneers. If I missed any, please leave them in the comments below. Now let's move on to porcelain veneers. So the structure for a porcelain veneer is a little different. It takes more appointments for a porcelain veneer to be delivered because the porcelain is actually being made out of the dental office off-site by a ceramist. So what is being done in the office is that we are reshaping the teeth to receive the porcelain when it's back. And in the meantime, there will be temporary veneers. Once the master ceramist has completed crafting the porcelain veneers, the patient will return and we just simply glue them on to the fronts of the teeth. So here are my top 5 pros of porcelain veneers. The first being that there is an improved likeness to natural teeth. And that is because the ceramist is working on this smile off-site and has different tools and materials that can give a more lifelike look to the porcelain. The porcelain can also achieve a very beautiful high shine that mimics natural tooth structure. The second reason is that porcelain is a longer lasting, stronger material. Just think about how dentists use porcelain crowns on back teeth to give support to the tooth so that it doesn't break. So porcelain is stronger and more able to withstand the biting forces that patients will inevitably put porcelain veneers through because it's a functioning part of your mouth. Number 3 is that porcelain itself does not stain like composite. However, I will say that depending on how the porcelain was finished and how the patient treats their porcelain veneers, the margins can still stain. So personally, as a cosmetic dentist, if I have a patient who has a lot of stains originally and has really staining habits, I will choose to place the margins in areas that are a little bit harder to see so that even if they stain over time, they'll be less visible. The 4th pro I already alluded to. It's more visits, but each visit is a lot shorter, so less chair time, which is a little bit more comfortable for the patient. Pro number 5, and I think this is a big one, is that more people are a candidate for this because there is some amount of drilling involved, and the drilling can compensate for unideal placement or alignment of someone's teeth. For example, in this picture over here, that tooth is really forward, so we can actually take that back and put that tooth back in line with the rest of the teeth. Now, before I go on to the cons of porcelain veneers, I put this next one as kind of a pro and kind of a con. And that is, again, it's a lot more visits, but having each visit sequenced out creates more of a checks and balances, which makes it easier for patients to process. Getting veneers is quite a process, and the last thing we want is for a patient to come in with no design involved in the veneers and no personal input with the design and to be completely surprised by the final result. And so I think that having a design process as one of the multiple appointments involved with porcelain veneers helps patients to process and give their input into the final design of the final veneers. If you want to learn more about my actual process for veneers, appointment by appointment, check out another video. I'll link it right here. All right, now let's talk about the cons of porcelain veneers. I think it's really important to be very transparent about both pros and cons when considering any procedure, especially if it's irreversible, which is the first con of a porcelain veneer. Because in most cases, even if it's minimally invasive, we have to remove a small layer of enamel that is irreversible. That enamel is never going to come back. So this is a big decision when it comes to somebody who's deciding between a porcelain and a composite veneer. While we're on the topic, I do want to make a point that most cosmetic dentists will be very conservative with the amount of enamel that's removed for a traditional veneer. There are a lot of things that I see on TikTok and on Instagram, see a lot of preps that are over prepped. Too much enamel has been drilled away, especially there is a famous TikTok of a girl that went to Turkey for her veneers. Those are not veneers. Those are full coverage crowns, and I would highly recommend that you find a cosmetic dentist that will prioritize the minimally invasive approach. The second con is that if a porcelain veneer chips, it cannot be repaired. It needs to be completely replaced. And yes, although porcelain is stronger than composite, porcelain can still chip, just like natural tooth structure can chip. Enamel is one of the hardest substances, and that can chip as well. If a porcelain veneer does chip, the entire thing needs to be replaced, and you need to go through the entire process again, including taking impressions and sending it to a lab and having it come back, and then the porcelain veneer will be replaced. Now, that is a simple way of thinking about it, but in reality, most people get their porcelain veneers in sets, and they get them for the purposes of aesthetics. Replacing a single veneer, especially if it's your front tooth, you may not be able to get the exact match, even if it's the same ceramist at the same lab, the same color. Now, having those three will improve the chances that your veneer will match the rest. However, there are small differences between every single batch, and that is something I want people to be aware of. The third con is the potential for sensitivity and for a possible root canal. Now, this is a possibility anytime we are drilling a tooth. And obviously, the less we drill, the higher the chances that the tooth is fine. I would say in most cases, if your cosmetic dentist were to remove a traditional amount of tooth for a traditional veneer prep, the tooth is oftentimes fine. Now, why would a dentist drill away more? That seems unethical and unnecessary. Sometimes it's necessary. For example, if someone hasn't had braces before and their teeth are crowded or protruding, more tooth structure would need to be removed in those cases. And that is why I think it is really important to talk to your cosmetic dentist about possibly getting Invisalign or some sort of orthodontics to put the teeth in the correct place. The best results for porcelain veneers and the longest lasting results will happen when the teeth are in the correct position, which allows a dentist to do minimally invasive work. And although a lot of patients aren't looking for Invisalign or want a quick fix, I think it's my responsibility to let them know if I think Invisalign is going to improve the longevity of their porcelain veneers. All right, those are my top 3 cons of porcelain veneers. If you feel like I forgot something, put it in the comments below. Now, one last con that I didn't include, but it is definitely a con for both composite and porcelain veneers, is that they can both get new cavities. So because the veneer is often only covering the front and maybe a little bit of the sides, the back is all still your natural tooth structure and can develop cavities if you do not take care of them well. After going through all the pros and cons of both composite and porcelain, if you're still kind of on the fence, what a lot of patients do is they will go with the composite first and wear that for 3 to 5 years before it needs to be replaced. I think this is a great way to go when a patient is really young, maybe in their 20s, and then they can replace the composite veneers at that time, or they can transition to something more permanent like a porcelain veneer. So you do not have to choose one or the other. You can do a little combination of both. And although you do have to pay for each type of procedure, it is helpful for people who desire a more stepwise approach. All right, that's it for this video. If you found this video helpful, please like and subscribe, and I'll be back next time with more videos on cosmetic dental procedures. Bye.